Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is John Hoylo, and I'm a representative of the Kaiju Kembo Association of America, the KAA. Recently, some proposed changes to black belt criteria and titles have been published by the board, and we asked for your thoughts. First off, thank you for your responses. This is an ongoing process, and we want your feedback. This video is a response to some questions and concerns that were raised to those two things, the criteria and the titles. So please feel free to respond to this video too, if you agree or disagree, by emailing us at kaagaylordmethod@outlook.com. It's important for everyone's voice to be heard, even if you just agree. So number one, the criteria. Some issues that were brought up. Testing requirements under the criteria to ensure fake Kaiju Kembo practitioners don't infiltrate Kaiju Kembo. The number of years on the criteria not matching some current black belts, and at what rank someone becomes a professor. Regarding the professor title coming at 7th or 8th degree, this is something for you to help us determine. Tell us if you have a preference, because it's looking like we're going to make sure that the professor rank stays at 8th degree. Regarding the number of years and criteria itself, remember that this is a general guideline. If you don't fulfill the exact requirements, but your instructor feels you show the necessary skill and character of that rank, they can still give you that rank. If you haven't trained the required number of years, but your instructor feels you can go toe-to-toe with the next rank up, they can still promote you. On the other hand, if your instructor wants to be extra strict with their own promotions under this criteria, that is also their prerogative. Belt promotion ultimately is decided by the instructor directly, and the guidelines are established to help instructors compare their promotion decisions with everyone else, as well as give lower ranked students a better understanding of how our belt promotions work when compared to other martial arts like BJJ or karate. Testing for these ranks is also up to the instructor. Keeping fraudulent martial artists out of our schools will ultimately be up to you, your instructors, and your students. So again, currently, these guidelines are just a general description for clarity's sake, and special cases will be welcome. And number two is the titles. There are a lot of questions about the titles, so please bear with me. First off, this is not meant to take anything away. No titles will be stripped. No one will be required to drop their current titles. Seijo Emperado will still be addressed as Seijo, because that was the title he wanted, and Seijo literally means founder. I personally will continue to call my instructor Ron Esteller Shifu, and his instructor, James Juarez, Sigang. Titles used between instructors and students will not change. They are powerful and should be kept. If you want your students to call you Sifu, Sensei, Coach, or Mr. Smith, these guidelines have nothing to do with that. At the end of this video, I'll explain the Chinese titles a bit. Just know part of the intention is to have correct terms for rank titles, the ones that show up on certificates, not for interactions between you and your students. Another part is to simplify things. A black belt is a black belt. That title alone should mean a lot. A black belt with more experience, a big brother to everyone else, is a senior black belt. 5th degree is also the rank when the original Kaiju Kembo schools awarded the title of chief instructor, and that was one of the first real titles you were awarded. As times have evolved, for some, being a black belt means being an instructor, while for others, instructorship is a separate skill. So the titles of instructor were considered. However, instructorship may be better represented in the teacher-student address with words like coach or Sifu, something separate from the proposed official KAA rank titles that represent more of an academic achievement. Although we want everyone to instruct and continue the progression of our art, some people just don't have teaching skill, resources, or capability to the same degree as others. Now, furthermore, This is not due to a lack of Chinese influence on our art. We acknowledge the Chinese influence in our art, and that's why we wish to use those titles correctly. The Chinese titles were an evolution of our titles. Originally in the 1950s, some Kaiju Kembo teachers were addressed as sensei because most martial arts then had Japanese roots, and all our official titles were English. In the 1960s, as Tumpai, Chuanfa, and Wunhop Kwendo brought in more Kung Fu, the Chinese titles were added to reflect our evolution. And we believe it is now time to reflect on further evolution. As we've studied more of the Chinese arts, we've learned that we've been using the titles incorrectly. As our art expands around the world and the world gets a little smaller with technology, it's important to use other languages' titles as they were intended. And let's face it, part of Kaiju Kembo's strength is its flexibility. So this is our thought process. If you disagree, good. Please keep talking with us. This is your art too. Please respond. Let us know what you think of our reasoning. Our thought process is keep the Chinese forms of address for your instructors. Simplify the official titles based on rank and separate the teaching aspect from the knowledge aspect. Now, very quickly, let's do some Q&A. One question that came up, I'm going to read this directly. I also thought that the Chinese influence comes primarily through the Kempo component of Kaiju Kembo. I was raised in Gaylord Kaiju Kembo method being told that the bo stood for Chinese boxing. Is that not the case? So, excellent question. A lot of research has been done over the last couple decades. A couple things here. The ka in Kaiju Kembo did not stand for karate. It came from Kempo karate. But instead of calling the art Kenkajubo, the founders thought it would sound better to move the word ken over. But the ken also stands for Kempo Jujutsu, which is what Peter Chu, Frank Ordonez, and Adriano Emperado all studied under James Mitose and William Chow. And it's all really different from the Kempo you'll see in Japan. Also, Kempo is a Japanese interpretation of Chinese Kung Fu. Yes. However, that interpretation made it a Japanese art with a Japanese name. Just like Japanese karate is different from Okinawan karate, which is different from the Chinese arts that came from. So to summarize all that, our Kempo is strictly Japanese at best. Now, bo in Kaiju Kembo means Chinese and Western boxing. Chu, Ordonez, and Emperado also studied Western boxing. But at the founding of Kaiju Kembo, they did not study Kung Fu. Emperado didn't study Kung Fu until the early 1960s. So during the founding of Kaiju Kembo, the only Kung Fu practitioner was George Chang. And check this out, it's unclear how much influence Chang had on the original Kaiju Kembo. Now actually, he might have had a huge impact on our punching attacks. But there's also a possibility that his contributions were minimal. We really have no evidence to say. Now, there's a lot of Kung Fu influence on what we do. At Kaiju Kembo's origins, maybe not so much. That's why until the 1960s, Chinese titles weren't even used. Now, another point that came up in another email, titles are often used to show someone's service and or relationship with others. Terms in church, like deacon, minister, preacher, and pastor, all carry the root meaning of servant and should remind the leader of their responsibility to others. Terms like professor, grandmaster, and even Seijo gives you an idea of the role and responsibility that person has in the family of Kaiju Kembo, and in particular with us in KAA. So, another great point. Our thoughts are that being a black belt in Kaiju Kembo should show that exact same relationship with others. And being a black belt should remind you of your responsibilities. that phrase, black belt, should be as powerful as deacon, minister, pastor, etc. The term senior black belt should carry that same weight to a higher degree. As for the role in a family, we agree. And that's why we want to use the Chinese titles correctly. Just like you wouldn't address your father as grandpa, you wouldn't call your sifu sigung. And just like you wouldn't call your son dad, you wouldn't call a lower rank sifu. We hope you do use the Chinese titles. They are a huge part of our evolution, and like I said, I will continue to use them. But as we expand into the world and interact with those from the motherlands of the arts that we study, it's important we give them the respect that they deserve too. And now, as promised, a breakdown of the Chinese titles, which will be included in the updated Charles Gaylord book. Just very quickly so you can see where we're coming from with these titles. Number 1, Sijou means founder. It fits Adriano Emperado perfectly, so that we support that. Number 2, Sifu is traditionally used in Chinese culture for your instructor, no matter their rank. The head of a school would probably be addressed as Sifu no matter their age or time in the art. People we call professor or grandmaster would most likely be addressed as Sifu. Male and female school owners are both addressed as Sifu. You might find a similarity in Japan with the term sensei. Sensei is used for classroom teachers, lawyers, and doctors, not just martial arts instructors. And in Japan, you never call yourself sensei. Now, 3, in Chinese, your sifu's teacher is addressed as sigung if they're a man, or sipo if they're a woman. Your sifu might be my sigung. Number 4, sihing. Sihing means older brother and is used for addressing your sifu's earlier students, the upper belts you look up to. Unless you have a falling out with your sifu and train under a sihing, in which case sihing becomes your sifu. 5 is sibak. Sibak is your sifu's big brother. So the practitioners above your instructor who trained with your sigung. Sigung students below your sifu are called sisok. Your teacher's peers, neither above or below them, sibo. Your sifu's wife who doesn't train, simu. So in the end, there's nothing wrong with choosing to grant titles like sifu or grandpa or dragon slayer if we wanted. So if we choose to use Chinese titles as ranked titles, that would be up to us. But we should acknowledge the title's real meanings. And remember that we'll be interacting with more Chinese speakers as our art continues to evolve. These are our thoughts on the criteria and rank changes. We have to organize our system in a way that at least most of us are happy with. Let us know your thoughts, and if you have any more questions, we may even do another video like this to answer those questions. The end result after all of this deliberation will be officialized in the upcoming update to Great Grandmaster Charles Gaylord's book. We hope this video answers some of your questions and possible concerns. And again, we look forward to hearing back from you at KAA Gaylord Method at outlook.com. Until then, mahalo.